And welcome to the Filmstein Podcast, a podcast where we are challenged with trying to articulate a love for art and storytelling. Today I am joined by my surviving friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
I'm glad everybody could join us today. Thank you guys very much for being here. Because today we will be discussing Robert Zemeckis' 2000 film, Castaway. I was very curious to watch Castaway, and I'm mostly happy to report back at least 2/3 of it are quite good. Survivalist movies and movies often only having one person on screen at a time often comes with guys doing a bunch of just stuff. They just do things and we watch them do the thing. And much like dad films, I like watching people do their thing when they're really good at it. When they have to figure out how to do the thing. It's very cool and fun. But especially when there's something to learn in the process, like Chuck here, Tom Hanks' character. I love this flip, at least as far as being on the island. Before he got to the island, he was a man who lived to work. And of course, because he's obsessed with work and it completely consumes him, he has somewhat suggested problems of family issues, love issues. The whole setup to leave and get in the plane, crash, go to the island is a little bit of a half measure of building any kind of relationship because we come running out of the gate with this theme of living to work. But then we follow up this obsession with work with a strange relationship with Kelly, Helen Hunt's very awkward character. I know it's not entirely her fault. Zemeckis is obviously to blame here too, but she is real bad in this first section and the last section, especially the last section. But I guess ultimately establishing Chuck and Kelly's relationship is at best awkward and at worst a complete waste of time and only distracting to, I think, the at least initial theme of the movie, in that one should prioritize working to live instead of living to work. And I thought that was going to be the major struggle of the film. We do end on an awkward note of you never know what the tide's going to bring in, but more on that in a little bit. But after spending some awkward moments with Kelly and their weird relationship, the movie really kicks into high gear. We get Chuck on the island. He has to figure out how to live. Obviously, I love the inclusion of Wilson being a reason for Chuck to speak out loud, even though he just says Wilson a bunch of times in the movie. I almost wish we could have stripped the front and end of the movie for 15, 20 more minutes of Chuck on the island learning different things. We obviously have this time skip, which I think is very effective, because I think the film does do an excellent job suggesting that Chuck is going to be rescued. I'm not sure if you got that vibe. And of course, Chuck finally gets out of this scenario with really no help of others and really kind of finds the perfect ending, but then continues to go on for another 15 or so minutes. And we have to reestablish Chuck's relationship with Kelly, which is awkward. And I don't know what Kelly's problem is with just saying hi, like at the airport or whatever. She was there and then didn't want to say anything. I'm not sure how controlling her new husband is or whatnot. It was just weird and out of place based off of the established relationship 4 years prior. But then we end the film on this hand-fisted theme of you never know what the tide's going to bring in. It's like, well, I see how that's applicable with the packages and the porta potty coming in and everything, but that's not what Chuck learned here. That's irrelevant to the lesson of working to live instead of living to work, instead of being obsessed with your work to the point of the inability to connect to others. And maybe that's some of the point of the intro section. But I'm very curious, how do you feel about Castaway?
Yeah, I'm with you on a lot of these points. This was a pretty good movie. I'm definitely an upcoming Zemeckis fan. He's done some of my favorite Christmas movies, along with recently covering Back to the Future. That grew to be one of the favorite sci-fi films. And, of course, Forrest Gump, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of the things I really enjoy about his films are these elements of personal growth and the unpredictability of life. And Castaway is no stranger to this. This film is about what it means to be alive and what it means to be human and what happens when our modern comfort is stripped away. But most importantly, it's about the consequences of our choices. I love that this film explores isolation and how transformative it can be to be alone. Through isolation, people can find themselves. And Chuck's isolation is transformative and really makes them think about time and how important it is to spend time on things that truly matter. And before I continue, I definitely agree with you on the end being kind of confusing. It really reminded me of Forrest Gump's need to run in search of his purpose, maybe deal with some of his emotional pain, and just how both of these characters' journeys are symbols. Chuck is cast away to fix his relationship and have a value for time, and Forrest runs to keep moving forward. But I also love that we have this contrast in those themes with the need for human connection. The film brilliantly does this through a volleyball. I'm in complete agreement with you on Wilson. Wilson, by far, is the best thing in this film, and arguably one of the most iconic objects in film that I have seen. It truly amazed me because how does a volleyball become an unforgettable character? How does this film make me emotional over a ball? It's crazy that out of all the useful stuff that he found in all those FedEx packages that washed ashore, this was the most crucial to his survival. I mean, this was why losing Wilson was so devastating. It was like losing a friend that helped you through the toughest time of your life. And with Wilson alone, it was just a testament to the film's craftsmanship and Tom's performance. Because I agree with you, not only does Wilson have so much symbolic meaning, but he was also a great plot device for Tom to have a dialogue and let us know his thought process or his feelings. Like you said, even though he was just saying Wilson the whole time, how he was saying Wilson let us know what exactly was going on through his head. And it's so crazy because would Chuck have made it out that island without Wilson? Apart from his interactions with Wilson, the rest of his performance on the island was great. He goes through a massive physical change, and I always applaud that in actors. I think it's awesome that they can do that. And I'm in complete agreement about Helen Hunt and really other characters, like his friend on the plane that's wife had cancer, didn't really go anywhere there. And their performances, you bring up that Zemeckis is a little bit at fault there, and they didn't really get that much screen time, so I couldn't really gauge what was the issue with the other characters, or even Tom not in the island. But apart from its thematic elements, I do have a bone to pick with the other elements of the film. The pacing of the film felt off, specifically that first act and that last act. The middle act, with him being stranded, is the heart of the film and brilliantly paced. There's so much to unpack with that middle section on why it's so great. And then it falters with the other two sections. I'm definitely not sure how I feel about the ending of the film or the entirety of that third act. I kind of wish they would have shown us how Chuck was rescued. That would have been more interesting to see than what I saw. I also don't like how quickly Kelly moved on. She already had like a 3-year-old at that point, and he was only gone for 4 years, and you're pregnant for almost a year, so she moved on fairly quickly. That's all I'm saying. I'm with you. I don't like how she sent out the new dentist husband to meet Chuck. We didn't get enough of a character out of her to know that this is what she would do, and just being scared isn't a good enough reason. And that ending with the crossroads, it was too ambiguous. What was the point? I don't know, really, what I was supposed to get at that moment. I know what I got with the rest of the film. Overall, I think there's a lot to love here. I completely enjoyed a lot of the parts. Again, especially on that island. The movie makes us care for Chuck. It makes us want to see his survival. The stakes there were high enough. And like you said, I'm a fan of dad films as well. I like films where guys just do stuff. Those are fun. Survival films are fun. You start thinking to yourself, man, could I survive on that island? But we have something more here besides just a survival film.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack there. This film would have deeply benefited by establishing one-sided relationships with Chuck. But he has time to pull jokes, like when he gives the ring to Kelly, or the promise of a ring when he returns, right? She can open it when he returns. It's like, this is cute and all, but this is kind of antithetical to him working so much and not having time for you, Kelly. But establishing some kind of one-sided relationship with him and Kelly, or his friend, him just being mentally unavailable for any kind of relationship would have helped sell Wilson. Even maybe justified some of the necessity of him rejoining society. Because the film definitely should have ended when he saw the freighter, or he got picked up and it just ends kind of thing. But that does leave some loose ends not tied up with people like Kelly, because we established them as at least people in his world, right? We didn't really define what kind of relationship they have. Because I hate to say it, but it does kind of neuter Wilson a little bit. Out of context, just on the island, Wilson works at 100 miles an hour. It's so heart-wrenching when Chuck can't find Wilson, when he kicks him out and has to go look for him, because he's also dealing with the other symbolic reason to include a Wilson, in that Wilson kind of represents his doubt and his subconscious, which is awesome. But then you step back a little bit and think, well, I didn't know Chuck had a hard time establishing relationship. I didn't know he was in need of companionship. Because obviously this is supposed to parallel his real life, and he's having to kind of rewire his brain that he has to work to live and not live to work. But he didn't have relationship problems at home. There should have been a fight between him and Kelly when he got called out to have to go to Malaysia, I think. But she just dotes over him, which makes it even more confusing why she moved on so fast too, to your point. Because you would think she would wait forever.
Oh, yeah.
If she's ride or die for this guy, and there's just no friction between him having to leave during a New Year's party or like immediately after or whatever, it's like, this girl's ride or die. She'll wait forever. Which I get maybe on one hand when Chuck returns and she didn't, it's supposed to be surprising, but it's just like this, none of this had the texture or depth to really make us feel one way or the other. It's just confusing all of a sudden.
No, definitely. There's a lot there I agree with. It almost starts becoming one of these situations where we're told that these two love each other instead of being shown or feel that these two love each other. And I don't know, I'm so conflicted on that first act that I really don't know where to take that, because we don't get much of that love, and he's obsessed with time, getting the packages on time, whatever, living this chaotic life, go, go, go. But then we get this sort of sweet dance sequence when she's copying her dissertation, and he holds her there for a second, and they dance to the rhythm of the copier machine. And I don't know if this is a situation where we're trying to humanize Chuck and not always make him seem like he's on the go, but that also is a major point to the film, that he is always on the go. So I don't know. And that whole introduction scene felt so rushed, yet it was still 25 minutes of the film. And not to mention the chaoticness of what is going on screen, but there's also tidbits of chaos with the camera work that also made me feel weird. Like this weird perspective shot we got of the package traveling, but that not really having anything to do with anything. But I don't know if I agree with you on Wilson's representation of him it mirroring his before island life. I guess I just saw Wilson more as a need that any human at any time, with or without issues, will find this need for human connection through any inanimate object, and not necessarily any kind of reflection on Chuck's pre-relationships. I definitely agree with a statement you said earlier that establishing Chuck and Kelly's relationship is a waste of time, because it really does feel like a waste of time. And I think you said adding 20 more minutes to Chuck on that island would have been better, and I completely agree. Maybe we could have seen more of that suicide attempt section and spend more time with his inner demons on that than, I don't know what kind of Bobo reunion him and Kelly had. I didn't feel any of that love, because you're right, this woman is willing to wait for him. She's waited all these years. I mean, there's a joke that, oh, when are you going to propose? That joke happens when you've been together for a long time. But then as soon as you find out this man is gone, you move on so quickly.
Yeah, it sounds like within 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you meet this dude at the funeral? And, what happened? Do you think this film would have benefited from having a perspective switch to what Kelly was doing? At least to know why that reaction of sending her husband to meet Chuck instead of herself. Or why she moved on so quickly. The film's already pretty long, so I don't know how much time something like that would add. Or would it be more beneficial to get rid of Kelly altogether and that reunion at the end? Because I got more from Kelly in that picture, in his stopwatch and his weird drawings, than I did from the actual human Kelly.
Yeah, trying to fit in some kind of perspective switch would have been even more confusing, because the film has a hard enough time establishing some kind of parallel, I think. Because if there's not a parallel, then why do we spend so much time in the front and back of the movie off the island, right?
Yeah.
Why try to establish any relationship at all? Chuck almost seems to be perfect from his perspective. He's got a great job, loves his work, gets to travel, has a loving girlfriend, potentially going to get married soon. She's fine with him working so much, It seems. What more could he ask for? So why put him on an island? What does he have to learn, right? And if he has nothing to learn, then why spend so much time trying to establish his place in the world? So it's just a little bit contradictory, I think.
Yeah, I think it's not set up right.
Yeah, exactly. And it would have been such an easy fix, and I'm sure it's a little bit of a combination of Helen Hunt and Zemeckis, and maybe a little bit of just ultimately kind of losing the point, losing the plot. Because Chuck and Kelly are obviously supposed to be at odds with each other, I think. Because that would justify, putting the man on the island to learn something, becoming friends with a Wilson, yearning for a connection, even to the point where it's a imaginary friend, reintroducing him back with Kelly when he gets back, it being kind of rocky, but them figuring out that they're romantically kind of entwined and stuff, because when they have their moment in the rain and stuff, I'm just like, what is going on here?
Yep.
She's terrible. She's a coward. She's at the airport and she can't come face to face with this guy. That kind of make it a joke, I think. This man was on an island for 4 years and lived, and you're too scared to come give him a hug, say what's up. It's really awkward.
And sending your now husband, to the guy you were gonna have a life with. You couldn't send a friend?
Yeah, it should have been that friend, of course,
yes.
Of course. But then immediately after that, Chuck goes to her house. She's waiting for him, apparently. I've been waiting since I got home. She gives him the car. He pulls out. She runs down the driveway. He slams on the brake and reverses quickly. They have a moment. It's just, this is so weird. what is the point of any of this? It would have made more sense if she just ran off with him at this point.
That's what I thought we were headed.
It's like 5 or 6 levels of just increasing the awkwardness of storytelling. Because we also have this semi-antithetical moment where Chuck is trying to deliver this package that he has held on since the island.
For some reason.
I really praise you for finding something still in Wilson, because he only confuses me, really. In the context of just the island, Wilson's awesome. But when I'm thinking about the front and back of the movie, I'm just like, man, Wilson's as awkward of a character in this as everyone else. Chuck is still trying to deliver packages. He's the perfect FedEx employee, because they have the audacity to try and tell you that the major theme, they really kind of hand it to you, because he literally says it, that you never know what life is going to throw at you. You never know what the tide's going to bring in. When that was not the theme until the porta potty showed up on the shore. I guess you could maybe argue that the plane crash, the randomness of it all, is kind of the same thing, but, and maybe it's just me, but he's a man who obsessed over work to the point of destruction, or what I think is suggested destruction. We throw this man on an island to appreciate life for what it is. And we have this one little beautiful moment of him picking up a lighter, and, he flicks it on, off and on. And I dare say that's the only good moment in the last section where he gets rescued. But in the end, he sees this redhead, the owner of the house where he delivered the package, and they completely run with the you never know what life is going to throw at you thing. It's just like, this could not be more confusing. What is the point of Kelly? She's so central to everything. She drives Chuck to live. I think I had a similar but different problem with Jenny from Forrest Gump. I think that was just more along the line of Forrest having bad taste in women, but...
The unopened package is obviously very symbolic here. And maybe to start, that package represents the FedEx employee that's going to return that, and that's why it remains unopened. But as time passes, it's now just a symbol to keep him going. Like, man, I have to deliver that package because I need to get out of here. I need to survive. Not necessarily, I want to be the employee of the month.
That's how it comes across.
Not to me. The wings drawn on the package, again, is an obvious symbol. Him drawing those wings on the porta potty sail mast thingy, whatever it's called, continues that symbolism. Seeing those wings on the back of that girl's truck continues it even further. Because to some degree, Chuck isn't normal when he comes back from that island. He obviously has some deep trauma. And again, I said earlier on that Tom's performance is great on the island. I probably use that preposition a lot. On the island.
Yes, I feel you.
Because that is where most of the good things happen. Most of what I love about this film happens on the island. His acting, his performances before, okay, I get it. Because he's on the motion, he's go, go, go. All right. He doesn't really need to give anything big, anything performative in those 25 minutes. But after, where it's still like a whole hour of the film, or close to it, he needs to give a better performance on some of that trauma. Because for him to go and deliver that package, that obviously means something to him. Sort of like, well, what else do I have to do? Or I said I was going to deliver this and I'm going to deliver it. I don't know. I guess I took it as him going to deliver it because nothing in his life is back to what it was with Kelly, with his job, with his friends. I mean, for God's sake, they gave him a welcome back party and brought a bunch of seafood. This package is the symbol for him to move on with this life that's no longer what it was.
There's such a complicated kind of character moment happening here where we take this man who is obsessed with his job, drop him off on an island for 4 years. He returns and wants to still deliver this package. This is still on his mind.
Of course, that's what saved him.
Yeah, that's true, along with some others.
Yep.
The ice skates and the volleyball and whatnot. I guess I just expect him to be much more crazy or affected by what just happened, especially immediately leaving the scenario. But he's as romantic and as invested in Kelly as ever. It's like he never even went to the island for 4 years. So I don't actually hate the idea of him coming back and just wanting to deliver this package, like being obsessed with it to some degree, because it's maybe the thing that kept him going.
Mm-hmm.
But of course we know Kelly, I think, is at the crux of that. Am I wrong?
I mean, Kelly's picture being on that stopwatch or whatever that thing was, and him drawing all those pictures of Kelly on the wall makes Kelly pretty important. Did it start to lose the idea of Kelly and more of I have something to go back to, a will to survive moment, and really losing what Kelly means, who Kelly is? Kelly is just something I need to go back to. Because as film and books and art has shown us, those are the things that keep us going. Those are the things that keep us surviving. But then we get the weird Kelly reunion.
Yes, and the reunion's really the kind of the crux of the awkwardness, because I even kind of like the idea of him keeping the picture of her from the locket.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Because that's the Kelly that kept him through, not the real Kelly.
Right.
It's just, the idea of someone being there or even surviving for someone else. I will say, as soon as those packages started showing up on shore, I would have been opening them.
Me too.
I don't know why you sat on them for days at the very least, weeks maybe.
I would have opened each one as I picked it up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even collected them into a pile.
I also loved this visual of Chuck kind of destroying this island, because it doesn't really have a equilibrium of ecology, because it's so isolated. In the middle of nowhere, no animal life, very tiny island, really at the mercy of large dust storms from Africa or Australia. I'm not sure where they would end up, but a so-called ecosystem that is very much on a razor-thin line of living or dying, because it's not used to something taking from it, right, and giving, because there's no animal life, and probably even very, very few bugs. And so I love how he destroys the island little by little. Well, after 4 years, I guess, but
that's a long time. I'm surprised he didn't run out of materials. The middle section where he's at the island feels like a complete different movie. It's structured like a complete different movie too, with its lack of score and the use of the camera, that I just hate how we weren't able to blend the first and last act.
Totally. You can almost see the film starting in the plane, and within 5-10 minutes, we put Chuck on the island, and he lives out the rest of the film on the island, and then in the last 5 or 10 minutes is saved. And it becomes strictly a survivalistic, humanistic film. That's why I'm kind of hung up on the parallels.
No, that's a great point, because he still could have the watch with Kelly's picture on it. All I need to know is he has a wife or somebody back home to come home to. Wilson is still the great symbolic volleyball he is. A friend, a companion.
Yeah, completely to your point of just needing someone there.
Yeah.
We don't need anything else. We don't need the parallels, right? When we're handed something so funny, which makes us a little vulnerable, but then he becomes completely dependent on him. But he also represents a deeper side of himself, because I love when he vocalizes his doubt through Wilson. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
I'm of completely two opposed minds on this film. It's kind of funny.
I definitely had a more complete thought regarding this film. But now after talking to you, I don't know how I feel about it.
You're welcome.
I knew there was something I didn't like about the first and last act, of course. But then, speaking to you, what is the point of them then? What does that have to do with Chuck being on that island? Do I take it as face value as I'm taking it? Is there more of a mirror parallel going on that I'm completely missing because it wasn't set up correctly? I knew I had issues with Kelly and Chuck's relationship, but what relationship?
And one reason I have such a problem with their relationship is because Robert Zemeckis goes above and beyond establishing the romance, the playfulness, the texture, the lack of friction. If they would have just backed off on them being so in love and being so perfect maybe for each other, it wouldn't detract from so much. But because there's no lesson learned here, I guess ultimately for Chuck, that it's just like, what was the point of any of it? So I'm sorry to make you question yourself and your thoughts about this film.
Yeah, I guess the lesson learned here is that Chuck slows down. And that's not exactly shown to us through characterization or even through plot, but it's shown through us through the pacing and the camera more than anything.
Sure, that's a good point.
It's like those elements didn't match.
I mean, to that point, the film does bookend itself really well in that way because he's in, I think, Russia at a FedEx. It's go time. He's yelling at people because the package is a little bit late, yada, yada, yada. And at the very end, he's at a crossroad just looking around.
Mm-hmm. Which, that's something else Zemeckis built up. Why are you going to tell me that this lady out here in Memphis, I guess, or wherever she's at, sent a package to her cheating husband? That same package is what helps him survive. That's the package he delivers. He gets to the place to deliver it, and we no longer see the guy's name at the gate. That's obviously been removed. And here I am thinking, this is maybe not who he ends up with, but maybe somebody he finds that human connection with, someone he goes and talks to, but then we end at the crossroads. I thought right before we pan out and see the crossroad, he was going to follow her and maybe tell her his story. I don't know. But then we pan out and get the crossroads. And I'm like, oh, he's at some crossroads. Okay.
Would it have been better if when he was dropping the package off, she pulled in and was like, hey, you bum, what are you doing?
Yes, that's where I thought we were going.
That would have fit the you never know what the tide's going to bring in with you kind of thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And maybe there is a slight implication that he was going to head in that direction because he saw the little angel wings on her truck and how he stalled there thinking about it. Was it an Inception moment where it's divided on what Chuck did or what Chuck would do?
Maybe, but that's kind of confusing to leave it even 1 second ambiguous because everything else is so hand-fisted.
Yes.
To great effect, I will say, in a lot of ways, but maybe to the point of confusion in some ways. And maybe we're identifying just a lack of cohesion between the core idea, which is this man spends 4 years on a tiny island surviving, and them just trying to make some kind of wider, greater world story sense of it. Not completely unlike The Martian, maybe. Maybe that's where our perspective switch comes into play. That would have looked just like The Martian, though, wouldn't it have? Where Kelly is actively trying to work with people trying to find Chuck or something to that extent. But, alright, man, well, thank you for watching Castaway with me and talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
I'm going with 50 mil, just because Forrest Gump was 55. Why not?
Sure, Forrest Gump feels more expensive than this even.
Right? That's why I knocked it off 5.
Well, it says here that it was $90 million.
Oh!
Apparently they had to build an entire island.
Oh, man.
And it went on to make $429 million. So it did all right for itself.
Whoa.
And over on Letterboxd with 1.1 million people, they weighed in at a 3.9.
3.9 is pretty high. I think I'm going to go 2.5. That middle section was worth everything in the movie. I just hate that everything else was so ambiguous and not really intertwined with the point of the film. Tom Hanks had his moments for sure, and then they were killed by Helen Hunt. I'll still stand on Wilson being the best part of this film. You know me, and if a film makes me cry or emotional, it automatically gets a 0.5, and that was Wilson. Wilson was the 0.5 in the 2.5.
Did I help subtract your score?
Oh yeah, I think coming off the movie immediately was a 3.5. And after our conversation here, I probably dropped it to a 2.5. But I can't justify a 3 with 2 of your acts not being as great as 1. That's 2/3 of the film not being cohesive.
Yeah, there's a lot of gas in the tank of Castaway. And even though I have such a problem with the front and back of the film, it is still very good on a lot of levels. Wilson's great. You just don't want to think about it too much, I think. I don't think you want to think about the lesson being learned too much. You don't want to think about really who Chuck is. You know, who he was, what he becomes. Which kind of makes me ask, well, why I care about the film at all. But the way Chuck screams Wilson and how he opened that first coconut and lost all of the coconut water.
That was funny.
It's good stuff. The island is good stuff. And if the rest of the film could match it, it'd probably be a 3.54 for me. But Helen Hunt is terrible. I don't know if she's good in anything. I haven't seen very much of her. She's terrible in Twister. She's terrible here in Castaway. Her characterization's even worse. So thank you, Zemeckis, for that. So it's kind of a confusing film, but I enjoyed it well enough. I think I'm with you. Again, we hang out too much. I think I'm going to stick with a 2.5. It's got way too much gas to be a 2. It's not complete, coherent enough to be a 3. But yeah, man, thank you again for talking about this film, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Wednesday and Friday on all of our free foods, like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Our next episode will be on Robert Zemeckis' 2024 release here with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. So please look forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I've heard interesting things about that movie. Please look forward to that. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe. Come right in. Come request a film. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is the Filmistines signing off.